Mhm.
It says we are live now.
Are we? Let me...
Yep, the broadcast has started. You are now live. Hey, everybody.
Cool. Hello. Thank you for coming. Cool. Do we want to give it a couple minutes, or do we want to just like jump right into it?
I would just go ahead.
Okay, cool. So we are here to talk to you about Hot Nozzle Summer and Hot Nozzle Society. My name is Jenna.
My name is Andrew Adams. What's up?
Yeah, and we're really excited to be here. So we're gonna pull up some slides. Feel free to chat like amongst yourselves in the little chat box. We will answer questions like when we get to certain question stop points, and then answer all the questions at the end. So feel free to do what you want.
Yep. Please use the Q&A for questions and the chat for chat.
Sure. Yes. What Andrew said. Mm-mm-mm.
All right. So can we get a confirmation from the room that the slides are up, please?
Yeah. Can we get thumbs up in the chat? Anyone? Oh, I forgot there's a 10-second delay.
Slides are
Cool.
up. Wonderful.
Okay, awesome. So hello, NARCON. Thank you so much for having us. We are really excited to be presenting to you. My name is Jenna Foertsch, and I am the Executive Director and co-founder of Hot Nozzle Society, formerly known as Hot Nozzle Summer, and I am joined by one of my dear friends, Andrew Adams.
Hey, everybody.
Who is the president of HNS. And we're going to be talking to you about igniting passion in the next generation of Rocketeers and what that means specifically through the lens of Hot Nozzle Summer. Awesome. So before we get to the fun stuff, we wanted to introduce ourselves. Like I said, my name is Jenna Kay. I am from Minneapolis, Minnesota, and I graduated from the University of Minnesota in 2020. Some of my hobbies include fishing, the Minnesota Vikings, robotics, kickboxing, and of course, rockets in space. I currently work at NASA's Johnson Space Center, and I have been there since 2018, and I have worked in various roles involving data analytics and visualization, technology transfer, public affairs, and now I'm in the Office of Planning, Integration, and Environmental. My official title is Planning and Integration Specialist, which I always think is really funny when I tell people that because I love watching people nod and like pretend to understand what that means when I tell them my title. But overall, I work on a lot of special projects, which can range from historical preservation of Apollo mission control to design work, to architecture, to pretty much whatever JSC needs in a pinch. The top left picture is me on console and mission control when I worked for public affairs. Bottom left is me filming content for NASA's social media in the space vehicle mock-up facility. So I am no stranger to social media and the concept of making things viral. And then top right is my first rocket, which I launched at FAR, which is Friends of Amateur Rocketry based in Mojave, California. And I actually got my L1 with that rocket through NAR. So shout out to NAR. And I'm currently working on my L2. So hopefully I'll have that done soon. The picture on the right is a group of some of my best friends. You may recognize some of them. This is from a little YouTube video called Yeet Miss. Both Andrew and I are in this picture. I'm on the bottom left and he is in the top right. So yeah, that is a little bit about me and I will let Andrew take it away. Andrew, I can't hear your audio.
Because I was clicking around. Hello, everybody. My name is Andrew Adams. I grew up in North Carolina, where I started my rocketry journey in late high school. I like to travel, plan elaborate hiking trips, spend lots of time with my friends, and play VR games. I was at SpaceX doing some mechanical engineering work for a few summers, but made the switch to Blue Origin's rotation program because I can't just choose one topic ever. So right now I'm in a fluids role on New Glenn. And during that program, I got to go see New Shepard fly, which is in one of the middle pictures there. So rocketry has played a pretty central role in how I got to aerospace engineering. After competing in some competitions in high school, NASA SLI in Alabama, battled the Rockets in Virginia, I got my junior L1 through NAR at the end of high school. I went to MIT for undergrad and master's and led the rocket team twice while I was there. And on the top left is a subset of the team with one of the 2-stage rockets we flew. A lot of the skills I learned on rocketry or on Rocket Team were the reason I was able to get the internships and jobs at space companies. So I got my L2 relatively recently in December 2019 and hope to get my L3 this year. I'm getting those through AAA. I haven't transferred it over yet. Please don't hate me, but I will very soon. And I love to help with other people's projects, like Lumineer and like Keepmas. So a lot of the reason I'm here is because of really awesome mentors and friends back on my team in North Carolina. Shout out Dave Morey, Alan Whitmore, Jim Livingston, Dr. Lacoste, and Dr. Lacoste. And without them and a lot of help from my parents, I wouldn't have been able to get to the shenanigans that I do now. And as we'll show you, working on Hot Nozzle Society is our way of paying it forward to inspire the next generation of Rocketeers.
Awesome. I see we have some MIT love in the chat, which is exciting. But yeah, so yay, what is Hot Nozzle Summer? How did it start? How did it go? And why does all this matter? Also, how did these kids land a keynote at NARCON? It feels important to provide context on something that has the potential to change the hobby for the better and how that came to be so quickly. So I'm going to take you all through the story of how this happened. Yay, go Gophers also. Sorry, I see that. So yeah, I feel like it's important to note that I actually started HPR in April of last year, which is mildly shocking, considering the amount of knowledge it takes to pull off an event like HNS. So a group of my friends on the internet, as kids our age do, decided to go to the Mojave Desert to launch rockets. 2 rockets you may be familiar with at this launch are Joe Barnard's infamous Lumineer and Zyla Foxland's Fifi. During our time in California, all of the people in these pictures heavily encouraged and borderline forced me to build my L1 in the week that we had. I don't come from a traditional engineering background, and I didn't know about things like motors or recovery systems. So I was rightfully extremely hesitant. And over this next week, I was taught HPR by some of the most accomplished Rocketeers I know. And if you look at the picture on the top right of all my pals, that is a highly accomplished group of young professionals. For instance, Lauren Potterat was the lead software engineer for Traveler 4, which was the first successful student design, manufactured, and AIAA confirmed flight past the Kármán line, which is like pretty cool, and went on to be executive engineer for USC RPL. Several of the people in these photos, including Andrew, were on MIT's rocketry team in various leadership positions. There are a few here who work on rockets for their day job. Zyla Foxland is a very accomplished builder, and let me use her shot for my L1, so thank you, Zyla. And Joe Barnard is Joe Barnard. So I could not have had a more stacked team of mentors. So here are some pictures and a video of my L1. This entire experience culminated what I believe was my own personal motivation for helping push HNS to success. The day I discovered I loved space was actually very late in my life. I knew right away I was going to dedicate my life to it and work at NASA, and within the next year, I was working at NASA. So the day I flew my L1 was similar in that I immediately knew how powerful high power rocketry was as a tool for STEM learning, mentorship, and troubleshooting. And it clicked like all at once. And I knew I was about to become super obsessive with it. And when driving back from FAR, my friend Lauren mentioned something to me, and I think it's an extremely important sentiment. And that's that being an engineer isn't about having a degree. It is about just having a degree. It's about knowing what questions to ask and having the confidence and the will to continue troubleshooting. And I think the impact on society, if kids realize that about engineering, would be astronomical. HPR is not only fun, but it allows you to be creative in multiple ways. In its early levels, it's a good testing ground for making mistakes and troubleshooting. And in the late stages of HPR, it pushes your brain to solve much harder problems with even sweeter payoffs. So finally, fast forward, building my L1 was early to mid-April. HNS started popping up on Twitter around mid to late April. after the influx of social media posts from the Lumineer Week. Twitter, specifically Space Twitter, affectionately combine those two words to be called Spitter, which I know is like a really weird word, was itching to get into HPR. And a few tweets went around with the hashtag #HotNozzleSummer. Eventually, a few of us put it in our Twitter bios, which turned into a lot more than a few of us putting it into our Twitter bios. And we, eventually went back recently and counted the amount of social media followers of just the staff alone. And it comes out to nearly 1 million people just on Twitter. Also 200,000-ish on Instagram. That is a lot of people to be exposed to HPR. Additionally, a lot of the people we engaged with had never built a rocket before or had wanted to, but were not confident enough to pursue it. And social media is powerful in that if one person posts about something, all of their followers from different backgrounds see that post, and eventually all of their followers with different backgrounds see their posts. And it is a spiral effect of disseminating information very fast. And I cannot state enough how powerful social media is when it comes to inspiring people and reaching new crowds, ages, backgrounds, genders, races, et cetera, et cetera. So those who you would never traditionally see at a rocket launch were engaging, learning, and excited for whatever it was that we were building, which, it's a casual amount of pressure for someone who just joined the hobby. But I think it made me that much more it made it that much more fun to plan and made it so much more so much more determined to get it right. So it was just a blast. But eventually, the movement gained enough traction that one of our team leads, Matt Pat, made a group chat and asked a group of internet strangers, once again, to help him plan an event. And I eventually became the lead on this effort, and this led to a couple of very intense months and late nights researching what was required to host a rocketry event. Obviously, I was new, so most of the time spent planning the event was put into researching to make sure I did things safely and as smoothly as possible, while also allowing people to have an insane amount of fun. So this included the numerous aspects of rocketry events, like figuring out how to maximize the amount of launches in a day and how exactly should RSOs or range safety officers check rockets, and what is the best way to optimize a flight card, and what procedures should we put into pad ops. There were a bunch of important questions that needed to be answered while planning this thing. But I knew how that week of building my L1 felt for me and how crucial it was to invigorate my brain during COVID times. And I really wanted to give that experience to others. I wanted others to feel that feeling of support while surrounded by young, old, new, and experienced builders. Fast forward a few months to the middle of the Mojave Desert with a group of really excited people, and you get HNS. So we have a video. I don't think the audio works, so we're going to do a cheeky, cute little voiceover. But this was made by Jake, who is one of our staffers. He was also at the event. As you can see, one of the popular things about us is our shirts, which I know you're wondering, where do I get one of those shirts? Because I want to be a cool hot nozzler. Unfortunately, we don't sell them, but we might consider it based on how many people want them, because it's getting to a point where so many people are asking. But yeah, so one thing that's cool about launching the Mojave Desert is the recovery is actually not, besides the heat, right, and the desert tortoises, the heat is not that bad, I thought, but recovery is not that bad. Like going out and seeing where your rocket is, it's not in a swamp, it's not tangled in a tree. You see where it is, you draw a line in the sand, and then you go get your rocket. And we had a really robust recovery team in that they had a whiteboard and they were writing down GPS coordinates, and every team we sent out to do recovery had to talk on the walkie-talkie and every 10 minutes to make sure they were okay. There's Tim Dodd launching off his first rocket, baby's first rocket. But yeah, so it was just overall a life-changing event. It was very fun. And Andrew, do you have anything to say about it? I don't think so.
I don't have much to add other than it's really, really fun to be out there.
Yeah, it's a blast. No pun intended. Also, the FAR team is super nice, and we appreciate them letting us, like, accommodating us super last second. Because, like I said, we started planning this and we had to do it in a couple months. And all things considered, like, you have to get water out there, and they have water and they have bathrooms, which is great. We love that for launch sites.
Yeah, I think one of my favorite parts was our hourly hydration checks.
Every
hour we had somebody go through their system and remind everybody, drink water. It was great.
Yeah, we are like very aggressive in wanting to hydrate people. That is one of our missions as a hot nozzle society. Oh,
right,
cool.
Should we keep going?
Yeah, we can. Y'all get the point. And you can see this on our website, also on YouTube. It's a really, towards the end of the video is like a lot of the launches, which, spoiler alert, they're really cool. Cool. So Hot Nozzle Summer was a resounding success. The event itself was held at FAR, as we've mentioned, which is Friends of Amateur Rocketry. An important thing to note is that we did indeed practice minimum safe distances for the flights that were there. We didn't fly any motors that were big enough that bunkers were required. I know some of y'all are thinking that, so I'm going to answer that right now. We launched, I believe, 50 of the 60 rockets on the first day of the event. 40 were L1 and L2 starts. And there was a total of around 120, give or take. It could be much more, but I think it was 120. I believe on the Rocketry show, I said we had 45 flights, but I counted the launch cards and it was more like 60. And I wish I could explain how meaningful this event was to so many. And I had a handful of people walk up to me at the event and talk to me about how this event was one of the best weekends of their life, or that it reignited their passion for rocketry after X amount of years, or that they had never felt so at home and welcomed in a community, which to me is like absolutely huge. And I think the core of what makes us happy and fulfilled as humans is finding what we're passionate about and surrounding ourselves with a community that shares the hobby and those values, regardless of age, gender, background, socioeconomic status, race. Like, we were all there to just like have fun and fly rockets. And support each other while doing so. And I can't speak for all of the attendees, but the energy of the event was unlike anything I have ever experienced. So it was honestly a privilege to be able to plan and experience that. So why are people so passionate about HNS? Why do people resonate with it? Why did the event mean so much to so many? I think the answer involves like the meaning that each individual assigned to the movement. I spoke earlier that the community and mentorship I got from the Lumineer launch in April changed my perspective completely and ignited my passion. And I think the secret sauce was that each person at HNS had their own idea of what it was. And because it was so like it was never clearly defined when it started online on Twitter. So it was eventually up to me to decide like what HNS was going to be. So I started asking people, like, why does HNS resonate with you? And I got a few different responses. The first was what I've been discussing about community, belonging, the desire to create in a safe space, the desire to make badass rockets that launch super high into the air and look super cool. Others described the environment, the friendship, the knowledge acquired, etc. And those were all of the positive motivators. On the flip side, for the sake of transparency, there are some negative reasons why people leaned into HNS so heavily. A lot of students and young adults and new Rocketeers had the same sentiment of like, my local rocketry chapter is intimidating, or they're not welcoming, or they're gatekeepy or elitist. And those are some of the words that I've heard used from like quite a few people. People also described how sometimes they show up to a launch event, and if the person certifying at that launch is in a bad mood that day, they can dictate if you fly at their own will. And this is always unpredictable and really stresses people out. And the difference between you can't fly because your rocket isn't quite safe or built correctly versus you can't fly because I'm in a bad mood is apparently a sentiment that a lot of people face, which discourages quite a few people. And also they will show up at a launch and there's no one there that looks like them. So that's also an intimidation factor. The HPR scene as of now doesn't reflect what America's population is, and we want to change that. Awesome. So the event ended and we have all of this hype. What do we do with it? We become the Hot Nozzle Society. Hot Nozzle Summer was our 2021 event, and we did decide to keep the hot nozzle aspect, but we are now so much more than just a movement or an event. We provide community, resources, and a direction for the future of the hobby. And our vision is to create an aerospace industry that is more diverse, inclusive, and vibrant, starting with Hot Nozzle Society. And a lot of the people who are staff of HNS are now entering careers at like top aerospace companies. And their passion for aerospace and buildings started with either low-powered or high-powered rocketry. And so HPR is a tool to influence and then feed future employees, leaders, game changers into the aerospace industry as a whole. We are creating more confident individuals, regardless of background, that are ready to enter the workforce and make a difference and do stuff that like actually matters. So why is creating an aerospace industry that is more diverse, inclusive, and vibrant important? Why are we choosing to focus on issues like inclusivity and diversity? And these are hard conversations to have. But really important. And day to day, a more diverse HPR and aerospace scene has a wider collective background with more perspectives. And when you're building a rocket together on a diverse team, you have less blind spots and more ideas. Month to month, you have richer conversations and become a more empathetic human as you learn about other people. Beyond the benefits, the number one reason is that it is simply the right thing to do. There are people that have been historically excluded from rocketry, either because they didn't feel comfortable, didn't have the means, or both. And usually it's passive, unintentional, or a product of society as a whole. This is not an accusation. It's just an acknowledgement of the current state of the way things are. And at the end of the day, we are here to learn and do cool stuff. And the best way to do that is to include everyone. And no one should be discouraged to pursue rocketry. Or any hobby for that matter, based on how much money they have or what their degree is, where they come from, or what they look like. And this is rocketry's opportunity to change and grow and evolve. So our mission is to continue to foster an environment that makes people really excited about rocketry. Like, we want different backgrounds to feel like they belong in the hobby. Like, don't have the money to build an L1? Great, we want to help you. Money shouldn't hold you back from doing hobbies that you love. Want to build an L1 but are too intimidated? Great. We will find you a mentor and we will give you those educational resources. Want to enter HPR but are scared you may not look like others or have the same educational background or experience? Perfect. We have a community, an event for that, and are actively seeking to make hobby rocketry more mainstream and more welcoming to all.
Cool. So how are we going to enact the change we want to see when even our origin story doesn't have the demographic we want to end up with? So we're adopting a framework very similar to that of Students for the Exploration and Development of Space, which is it's a national group, or I think it's an international group of universities and undergrad students. And their framework is centered around justice, equity, diversity, and inclusion, or JEDI. So the periods in between the letters are really important. Disney threatened to sue them once already, but we're going to lean into it anyways. So to understand it, it's kind of like this. Imagine yourself as part of the Jedi Order, like in Star Wars. The Jedi Order is a peaceful organization that leads with compassion and understanding, and yet is equally unafraid to draw their lightsabers when it's clear that justice needs to be delivered. So this is, in a nutshell, the approach we want to take. Compassionately led, to have empathy for people's background, upbringing, and current circumstance, but not taking crap after it's clear that someone's being treated unfairly. It expands from diversity and inclusion that you all have hopefully seen a couple of times before into a way of life to carry with you. So in parallel, we'll be educating ourselves before, during, and after our outreach efforts. We need to learn and appreciate people's stories that are different from our own first. And while we do outreach, we'll be learning more and more about people and what they need. And after doing outreach, the culture continues to evolve. And we think that to make rocketry more accessible, we need to start evolving with it. And to do this, we'll need help. For example, I'm the first to admit that I was one of 3 Black people at Hot Nozzle Summer 2021, and unfortunately, this is kind of the norm in rocketry, and we don't want it to be that way. We want to represent the rocketry world and aerospace industry that we want to see in the future. And in some ways, HNS is doing all right, and its demographic is closer to that of the US, and in others, we're not. So we plan to collaborate with schools and organizations with lots of underrepresented students. We'll go to where we're needed and ask what they need. We think we have a pretty good place to start with the programs that we've planned, but they will probably change and adjust as we learn what their needs are. Our goal is to curate a community centered on rocketry that values inclusivity, collaboration, and education as much as it does the roar of a K550 motor when it leaps off the pad. Everyone should get to experience that moment. And last, we won't be perfect. We're going to make lots of mistakes along the way, and we'll be humble, direct, and transparent about them as we go along. Transparency builds trust, and in order to connect new communities to rocketry, we have to be willing to admit fault when we have fault and improve. Clicking around. So we're going to pivot a little bit, and we'd like to clarify our position relative to NAR and AAA, because I think there's a little bit of confusion in the air about this. In short, we fly through NAR and AAA, like we're NAR and AAA members. So we use the same safety codes, the same launch sites. We had NAR members able to help us host the launch at FAR last year. Jenna talked about how we followed minimum safe distances and the safety code. And almost all the rocketry expertise lies within NAR and AAA. And we hope to spread that knowledge. Things like local knowledge of how do we navigate launch sites. Like our team is not that big yet, and rocketry is all over the country. In some places, you have to navigate different farm fields in certain ways, and others, there's wide open desert. Every place has its rules, and the folks in NAR and AAA know them. What we bring to the table is the power of social media and a rebrand of rocketry that's more accessible than it is currently. And so far, it's working. In short, we need NAR and AAA because our mission is centered on rocketry and the aerospace and how it affects the aerospace industry. And NAR and AAA need us in order to pivot and make rocketry more accessible to more people and to continue and grow and evolve. So just to be double, triple sure and make sure the air is nice and clear, we are a community that is committed to breaking down barriers to rocketry. We're an outreach, education, and mentoring organization for future Rocketeers, and we are supplementary to NAR and AAA. We're not an independent third option, planning to give out its own certifications and regulate commercial motors. All right, deep breath. We're going to shift from here, from the why and the how to the what, and we're actually going to look at the Q&A for just a second if you guys have questions, because the topic's going to shift not like drastically, but it's going to shift.
Let's see, scrolling.
Yeah, the oldest on the bottom.
So let me answer one. What would be the do I click answer live? Hold on.
Yeah.
Okay. Where did that go? Okay, so pretty much like what are the plans for events in the future? We are going to hit on that. I know a lot of people are like, well, why don't you guys hold a ton of events? And I think like we hold ourselves for really high caliber of the mentors that are going to be there and the people that run the event. We want to make sure it's up to our standards. So as of now, we're just going to have like one yearly event. But, you know, if we get enough allies and enough people that support our mission, maybe in the far future, not saying yes or no, we might do more events. So there are no plans right now besides maybe potentially an event this year. Wink, wink. So let's see. What else we got? Oh, interesting. How many? Wait, any HNS members coming to National Sport Launch NSL in South Carolina? I don't know. Good question. You can ask social media and we will retweet it and you will get your answer. Andrew, do you have anything to add to that?
Not really. I'm not sure, but I bet folks are interested.
Yeah, I bet they are.
how many folks were out there in the desert? About 125 or so. For Bob Kaplow. Got a couple longer questions that are real interesting.
Yeah.
I'm reading David's question about
I am too.
experiencing the level up feeling. So I think so I'm gonna talk about this a little bit later, but I think that's part of why this also kind of addresses another question that we seem to be fixated on HPR. So we found that the level 1 is a really popular project because it's big enough that you really have to start exercising the engineering brain, but it's also simple enough that you can learn how to do it relatively quickly. And so I think that you've earned, so that level up feeling perhaps comes from you've earned something that you can now take with you, and you have a rocket that's like pretty big a lot of the times. You can hold it. I wish I had mine put together right now, but you it's big. It's a big thing. So I think
it's my rocket.
Yes, Midnight Rabbit.
See? That's it's pretty decently sized.
Yeah, and I think that's a big draw. So all this to say, I'm not sure if there's a way to gamify rocketry a little bit.
Can I take a crack at this one when you're done?
Yeah, go ahead.
Cool. Yeah, no, I think this is a super interesting question, and I'm going to be thinking about this for a while. But as someone, a lot of our nozzlers play video games, and we, you get that serotonin, dopamine hit whenever you get to the next level, and when you do new things and get new skills. And I do think rocketry is similar, but because of the reason that when you play video games, a lot of the times you play with a friend, or you play with a community, or you're in some sort of chat lobby. And so if you show up to an event and you have no one who's like you, or no one to air quote play with, it's not as exciting, I guess, right? Because there's no one there to celebrate it. So at HNS, one rocket would go up and the whole event would just absolutely lose their minds at how excited everyone was. We were hype. And that's the closest thing I can compare it to video games with, is the feeling of gaming with others and that community feeling. But I don't know if that answers your question. I'll think about that one more. What about you?
So Brian has a question about, really more a comment that it's really hard on the East Coast to find an HPR launch site. And yeah, we had to drive. I was talking about how I had mentors and my parents helped a lot. We had to drive 2.5 hours to the nearest launch site out in Bayboro. And that was a lucky thing that I was able to do. But honestly, we need to talk more with y'all on how to set up launch sites. Because I know even here I'm in Seattle now, because Blue Origin's in Kent, and there's a low power site and that's maybe 45 minutes away, and then there's a high power site 3.5 hours away. I think it'd be pretty cool if we had more low power sites.
I think we should hop back to the presentation, but there are a lot of interesting questions and we want to get to all of these. But I think we should finish it out. What do you think, Andrew?
Yeah, we should continue. I'm loving the questions.
Yeah, these are great. And also, yeah, one more, you are welcome to go on our website and submit these questions to us. We have a contact form, or you can contact us on social media, where we have something that's called a Discord. That's a Slack or a Microsoft Teams, where we have a ton of people that talk about rocketry and ask us questions there. So we'll talk more about that at the end, but go ahead and take it away, Andrew.
Cool. All right, let me click around and make sure I got everything going. All right, time to move on. All right, from here on out, we're going to talk about what we've done after last year's event and our plans for this coming year, and how NAR and EEE can help us through the Boosters Club. So right after the event, we started a 3-part collaborations with Students for the Exploration and Development of Space, or SEDS, and Locke PML. This spun out of HNS when Anthony, now our Jedi chair, was inspired by the event when he came. We made a guide to entering high-power rocketry, which you can find on our website. We combined several of the rocketry resources that were out there with our own internal expertise to create a concise document designed to take a beginner rocketeer from 0 to a level 1. We chose this because it was the first big milestone that rocketry has and has a big draw to bring people in. It's as we've from our experience, it's the single most popular project we found for undergrad age rocketeers, and the SEDS folks identified it as an area of need for universities interested in starting their own rocketry programs. So the second part of this was that SEDS invited us to the Space Vision Conference last November, where we released the HPR guide, The Art of the Nozzle. We met lots of students there, and we sent our guide to many of them, often leaders of collegiate teams who were interested in using it for their teams. So the third part is Jesse Yu from the Rocketry Show connected us with Dave and Jay from Locke PML, and we've been working with them to release a custom kit. It's still in progress. You can see some of the prototype parts on the right, and then the kit as assembled by our wonderful outreach chair, Anna. And we're working to have that ready for release coming in the next couple of months or so. Working with Locke has been pretty awesome so far, and we're really excited to share this kit. And the SEDS half of the collaboration is a scholarship for its members to get and build L1 kits throughout the country, focused on universities without rocketry programs and historically Black colleges and universities. So we're working on a discount with Locke for SEDS and HNS so we can get more people into rocketry. And so the net effect of this collaboration on rocketry will be a distributed influx of diverse undergraduate rocketeers learning rocketry and joining NARN from the ground up. So we're extremely excited to close the loop on this in the first half of the year. Next, we are planning to sponsor student teams to build and fly rockets to grow industry skills. This is kind of similar to a collegiate competition, but hosted and notably fully sponsored by us. These projects are designed to give students useful and fun experience to position them well for industry. Students will be required to work on a personal portfolio and make blog posts for our websites, helping improve communication skills and building a library of case studies on our website. We'll host a design review internally to practice technical communication skills as well. So each of these student teams will fly a GPS, an altimeter, and camera, as well as a student-chosen payload. And we plan to sponsor travel for these students to come to HNS 22 and fly. We know from experience that going to a big launch can be life-changing, and working on a team project like this and going to a big launch where they feel at home could change these students' lives. But we have a quick turnaround time. HNS 22 is this summer. So for this year, we plan to have 2 teams, one in the Denver area and one in the Seattle area, to work on a couple different projects. The Denver area, we're calling them extreme layups. An example on the right is Ben's rocket Eugene, spelled that way because it has a denim overwrap, which I think is awesome and hilarious, and we want to see how far we can take it. And at the same time, composites are a really big deal in the aerospace industry. So by doing something incredibly fun, you get to build a really relevant rocket and have a fun design review. The second project, the max altitude motor limited. Obviously, wherever we go for the event next year is going to have a waiver. So we're just going to pick a motor that won't break the waiver, even if the rocket is incredibly, incredibly light. And then we'll have a lot of the students go through the exercise of like trimming down mass and making it nice and smooth and working on higher performance type of things. So these are both like really cool projects that are accessible to these student teams that'll be mentored by nozzlers. We hope to do more of these in the future, mentored by both nozzlers and boosters, because it directly supports the students that both want and need the experience. I'm also going to do a shameless plug here. We are looking for individuals and companies to sponsor these projects and again, directly support the students who want and need the experience. So we're hoping to release applications and actually start the programs in the next couple of months. So on the horizon, we have a couple more programs coming. We're working on more fresh educational content, kind of similar to the art of the nozzle, that's engaging, simple, and easy to find. We want to have nuggets of guides for specific topics, like how to pack different shapes of parachute, wire an altimeter, replace a rail button, as well as big ones, guides to how to scratch build a rocket and how to design a rocket for a certain altitude range. The picture on the left is one of the graphics from Art of the Nozzle, and we hope to make all of our guides at least as easy to understand as the previous one. So we also plan to make exciting, relatable videos that people learn from. So we plan to make our own build videos to support the written guides. Notably, in order to represent our audience, we'll have minorities strongly represented in our content. In addition, we want to supplement the in-person NozzleWorks projects with in-person mentorship for new Rocketeers to get their L1. Again, this is a big entry point for new Rocketeers. It's big enough to be very significant, but simple enough that people can learn it relatively quickly. These will be individual nozzlers and boosters mentoring students locally, and they would fly throughout the year at NAR and AAA sections. And this is one of the key areas that NAR can step in. We're looking for individuals and companies to sponsor these as well. Shameless plug number 2. So if we take a step back and look at the big picture, we have a pretty wide outreach profile. By having interactions with people, with new Rocketeers at different levels of closeness, we hope to meet people where they're at. For one-to-one, high quality, lots of time, we have L1 mentorship. About 1 to 10 is where NozzleWorks fits in, and about 1 to 100 going to conferences like Space Vision and hosting workshops at HNS 22, which I'll go over next. And then again, using the social media presence, the reach goes even further. One person can write the guide that reaches on order of thousands of people. The videos will reach tens of thousands, and the reach starts getting into hundreds of thousands on Twitter, TikTok, LinkedIn, and so on and so forth. And not everybody that we reach will stay in rocketry or even get into rocketry. But if we can inspire someone who didn't previously see themselves as someone who could be a part of rocketry or aerospace, then we've done our jobs. So I'm going to hand it back to Jenna for some info about HNS 22.
Yay. Thank you, Andrew. That was great. So I know everyone is super eager to hear about our next event. We are still solidifying the final location and the workshops and the amount of people that can attend, but we are hoping to more than double the attendance from last year with the same energy surrounding it. So we'll hopefully be dropping location and dates very soon. But the event is kind of similar to an NSL or an LDRS, a multi-day event with talks and workshops, flights from our NozzleWorks teams, and lots of time to enjoy and vibe and learn a lot. We want it to be like a joint NAR and AAA event. Last year it was only NAR, and we want to make sure that we open that up as much as possible. So yeah, so Andrew briefly mentioned the Boosters Club earlier, but what exactly is it, and how can people get involved, and why is it important? We have really hammered home the importance of mentorship for both of us, and we think that's an integral part of how we're going to get more people into rocketry and excited about rocketry, and thus, wink, wink, more NAR members and certs. And we need that knowledge that people have gained over doing years of rocketry. Like, that is an important point of knowledge transfer that we absolutely respect and want to make sure isn't lost. Part of the Boosters Club is that it like addresses the concern that a lot of younger Rocketeers have, and that's that maybe they aren't sure how to get into HPR or where to launch locally. And this is where we need people across the country to step up and rally behind us to help us guide the next generation of hobby Rocketeers. And I just said this, but I'm going to repeat it for dramatic effect. We need experienced NAR members to help us usher in the next generation. Like, I can Google and find out most information in the world, but the knowledge acquired that we need is only from experience. And we have a form on our website if you're interested in learning more about it or in signing up to be a Boosters Club mentor. We would love to have you. We'd love to talk to you. We want all thoughts and ideas. Like, please engage with us. We would love to hear from you. So lastly, I just want to thank all of you for taking time to come listen to us talk about something that we are all really passionate about. I hope it's obvious how excited we are about HPR and that we are ready to tackle whatever it takes to make sure that the hobby thrives. And I also want to give a quick shout out to everyone who has donated time, resources, or mentorship to our cause. We have such a dedicated and incredible staff, and Andrew and I could not do it without them. Also, just shout out to those who are along for the journey. So it has been an absolute honor to be able to speak with you all. Please make sure you're drinking enough water. I don't know if you've noticed, but I've been chugging water this entire time. I know you're not supposed to do that during presentations, but and get a snack and stretch. And we would love to answer any and all questions that y'all have. So thank you for having us. Is this where, like, I'm going to pretend that people are clapping because it's virtual, which we'll clap for ourselves. Yay. I already saw a question that I really want to address. Hold on. Where'd it go? I will find it. Okay. David asked, got a Patreon? We've thought about this, and the answer is no. And the reason why is because since we're about inclusivity and accessibility, I don't want to hide like educational resources behind a paywall. Because that like further kind of reinforces that gap between like those who don't have enough money to do HPR and those who do. So if we find out a way to do it that's like not that, then we might consider it. But yeah, Andrew, do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, I think if we had a Patreon, it would feel a little different than a typical Patreon. A lot of Patreons have like different levels, and you like get different things at different levels.
Mm-hmm.
And the things, I think it would be a bit fewer things than most Patreons have. Because again, we're not trying to hide our resources at all. Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, great answer. Another one, let's see. Have you talked to Cloudbusters about doing something at Airfest? We have not, but Cloudbusters is on our list of like top 5 launch sites. If the one we're talking to now falls through, we might hit them up. They don't know this, so this is kind of sudden, but they are a great site. So love that. Another question is, what is the age range of the students that you are trying to reach? So ideally, I think like upper teen to like younger adult is our sweet spot. However, I do want to add that like there were people of all ages at HNS, and like you don't have to be a kid to be a nozzler to participate. Like that's maybe a kid at heart, but like we are not trying to tell anyone they can't join us. We just want people who like get it, who like get the mission and want to make HPR more fun and accessible. And like if that's you, regardless of age, you are one of us. So like yeah.
I want to answer a question from Copeland's, which I think is an older question. Any advice for entering aerospace industry for someone with IT, software systems, manufacturing background? How can I use HPR experience to turn a hobby into a career? So I think software like HPR is like obviously a lot more mechanical focused because you're building a rocket with your hands. Something that's been kicking around in our heads. Y'all are probably familiar with Joe and with TBC, and it seems like that is a cool way that rocketry could head. So at some point, this like obviously wasn't on our list of things that we want to do first, but at some point we want to make a TBC safety code with NAR and AAA. Because TBC is a really cool it's a really cool like hardware software mesh, and we think that that could be a cool direction for rocketry to go in. But obviously, like putting stability in the hands of your own software is a pretty dangerous thing. So we'd have to write a pretty comprehensive safety code to make sure that like even people that are new to TBC thrust vector control, you control the motor using actuators and software. It would be a hard thing to do, but it's a thing that we kind of want
on our
to
minds.
But as far as doing it now, making your own altimeter is a good way to exercise the software muscles. Like that's the first one that comes to mind. But making payloads and like having a like something nested on a flight computer that goes on a rocket is a way that I think about a lot. I hope that answers the question.
Totally. Yeah, and again, if you guys want more input, like feel free to message us with your question again if we don't get to it. Just a few like quick ones to answer. While it's never said specifically, is HNS specifically a West Coast thing? Are there plans to move it east? It is not a West Coast thing. Our event was on the West Coast. It may or may not be there next year. Not likely, but possibly. I'm actually from Texas. Like I'm in Texas right now. Obviously, Houston, NASA, and you know, I guess Andrew's on the West Coast. But no, we don't really have a location. That's the weird thing about HNS is like our initiative is largely digital. For now, our event needs a location, but we don't have like one home base. So let's see. So another one, this may be a bit different, but would the HNS ever plan to ally itself with any school rocketry clubs and teams? Absolutely. We didn't realize that when we were making the guide with SEDS, the Art of the Nozzle, how much college teams would love it. Like, we kind of figured that they might use it as a resource, but all of the people who came up to us at the event were like, this is something we're going to give to our freshmen. This is great. Like, this is the perfect resource. So we absolutely, want to keep creating resources and figure out what they need and help them with their journeys for sure. Okay, so do you support experimental rocket motor building? NAR does not. Does. I feel like we should address this one. It's the elephant in the room. Andrew, do you want to take it away or you want me to take this one?
Go ahead.
So the answer is like, we do not do it. That is not something that is in our wheelhouse at the moment. We don't plan to. It's not in our agenda. We get a lot of people who feel some sort of way about the fact that we don't have experimental or liquids or hybrids or whatever at our event. And honestly, sorry, too bad. It's super cool. But like we said, we have our sweet spot. And for me, one of the reasons why like I didn't want hybrids or liquids at or like anything experimental at the event the first year and why I fought against it is because the first event I went to, there was a liquid rocket that sat out on the pad for like an hour and we had a ton of rockets to launch at our event. And I was like, if someone's liquid rocket decides to take its sweet time, these people aren't gonna be able to get their L1s and they're like driving across country to do this, to just get their L1 and hang out with people. So I wanted everyone on an individual level to have like a good experience. And that meant getting rid of experimental. But Andrew, do you want to add to that?
Yeah, it's a really weird place because to get a lot of jobs in rocket propulsion requires some like rocket propulsion experience, and the barrier to experimental propulsion is generally a lot higher. So really, our sweet spot isn't in experimental propulsion because the barrier is so high. We can affect more people by helping them fly their L1s than we can by like having a lot of liquid resources. Like even on our team, like there are very few people that have dealt with liquids. So we've thought about it. So if folks want to do experimental propulsion stuff, like Tripoli is the way to go, and like we'll have NAR and Tripoli at the event. It is unclear whether or not we're going to have experimental propulsion at the event because we haven't gotten there yet.
But yeah, probably not, but maybe. But we have 5 minutes. I think we should speed run these.
I think that the next session like just sort of goes in parallel. Like this one's not going to end. So,
oh, really? It says session ends in 5 minutes, and I'm like looking at it, and I'm like, oh no.
Yeah. No, I think if I had this right, I think they run in parallel. So if people want to switch over to the manufacturer's forum in 5 minutes, you're welcome to. But we can also hang out.
Oh, let's go. Okay, because I was like, man, I could sit here and talk for hours. That's obviously why I do this. So like, and you too. So people want to stay. But Ed said, oh, also hi Ed. He said, I hope HNS will participate in next year's NARCON. Yeah, the answer is yes. So nice. We answered the video game one. Did we talked about like East Coast and like low power, right? Did we?
A little. I didn't have an answer other than we should probably look into, especially especially with local mentorship, we should look into what it takes to establish a launch site. It may also take us becoming a NAR section, but we're also sort of decentralized. There's a lot of question marks there. Definitely interested and want to pursue.
Because we want it to be for everyone, right? And that includes the East Coast. We definitely have talked about becoming like some sort of NAR section, but it's there's logistics with that. But we will look into that. Thank you for bringing that up. So yeah. Sorry we don't have a better answer. Okay, so I have a question. I am making an HPR level 1 rocket and I need help with the gap between the motor and the top of the motor mount tube. Do you have an answer? Andrew, thoughts?
So I'm trying to visualize this in my head.
Yeah, I'm like, you can send us a picture.
Yeah, if you want to submit a question with a picture on the website, that might help.
Yes, absolutely.
But what I'm thinking is, as long as the motor mount tube is centered with at least 2 centering rings in the body tube, the gap between the motor mount tube and the top of the motor is gonna vary with different motor sizes anyway. It doesn't have to be exactly the same length as the motor. I hope that answers your question. If you want to submit a picture to our website, please do.
Yeah. Or alternatively, if you go to our Discord and you post that in a Discord, I can almost promise you that you will have an answer within 5 minutes, because there are like over 500 people in that server and all of them are like passionate hobbyists and they are just looking to help people, like looking for people to help. So that is probably also in a good place, because Andrew and I, it'll take us a little bit to get to that. Okay, let's see. We maybe have a more diversity than other clubs due to being a hub for 3 major universities: Purdue, University of Illinois, and Rose-Hulman. In fact, flyers from Serbia, Germany, Australia, and Brazil at our last launch. But in HNS, what demographic are you needing to fill out your membership? First of all, congrats. That's awesome that you have like a ton of different types of people at, you know, your like involved with your clubs. I'm not really sure how to answer this.
Yeah. I mean, I alluded to earlier, we need more Black people.
Yeah, there was 3 Black people at our event.
Yeah, we haven't actually like done a census of our own people. I think we're doing we're doing okay gender-wise, and we're doing less well race-wise.
Yeah, like
which
I think also like we are trying to like target and hit up historically Black colleges and universities. So to like have an event that's like all white and then like be like, oh, but we're also doing this, like that just doesn't like mesh with the mission. So we're working on what our sweet spot is. We could not tell you what that is, but it's in our brains. That doesn't answer your question, but that's the best we can give you. How can we best engage with you? Either our website or our Discord, or like you are always welcome to message me personally or Andrew. My email is just jenna@foertsch@gmail.com, which my last name is a little bit of a doozy to spell. But if you find me on social, I will try to respond or I'll direct you in the right direction. I get a lot of messages, so but I'll try my best. Okay, how can NAR help HNS, and what do you recommend for us to do as local sections? What a great question. Make sure that when this is just my first thought, and I'm sure Andrew has another thought, but when you see new members or like younger members, like welcome them and make sure that they have like you're their person at that event, because if they don't know anyone else in that chapter, like they're gonna cling on to the first person that's nice to them, and it's like a comforting feeling to know you have someone on your side, which is kind of why we started the Boosters Club. Because like I don't know if you guys have ever gone to like a party or like a club or like school, and you find one person you really get along with, and you're like, I'm clinging to you because I don't know what's happening here. But that was a weird analogy, but you know what I mean. So that's what I would say. How about you, Andrew?
Yeah, I think the first thing that comes to mind. Okay, cool. The timer just expired and nothing happened, so that's great.
Counting down, I'm staring at him like,
yeah.
Oh no.
The one thing that comes up is that I think a few decades ago, people were taught that if you don't know what someone's pronouns are, you assume he, and
Ooh.
that is no longer the case. If you don't know somebody's pronouns, assume they, and really assume they unless they tell you.
Yeah.
And
or pull them aside and ask.
Yeah, it's a really simple thing. That's like that it's really hard to sort of like rewire your brain.
Yeah.
But it's one that's an immediate indicator that like a lot of younger people will,
or that it's a safer space.
Yeah.
That's a great answer. And like I get this question a lot because I work at NASA. Obviously there's like older people and they're like, hey, I don't want to offend anyone. I don't understand the whole pronouns thing. And like I want to encourage you that like if you are trying your best, like you are already miles ahead of most people. And like don't be afraid to mess up. Just like ask questions and find someone who you can confide in and be like, yo, what's the answer to this? how am I supposed to ask people about pronouns or like whatever else it may be. But yeah, just keep trying. Like no one will cancel you for trying to get pronouns right, so yeah, or again, you can ask us.
And the last piece is if you know someone's pronouns and mess up, then just a quick like, oh, sorry, correct yourself, and then continue. There's no need to make it a big
don't make it a big deal.
Like
totally
acknowledge, correct, move on quickly. Try again the next time.
Another thing is like for local sections, you could hit up local schools and be like, yo, we exist. Because for me, I just didn't know that HPR existed, right? Like if I knew about low power as a kid, I would have done it. But like I wasn't exposed to it. So as soon as I was like, oh my gosh. So half of it is just knowing it's out there. And, you can do that through social media, like community-based areas. Just advertise, I guess. That's what I would recommend. But yeah. Next one is.
Sorry, I clicked it.
That's okay. It was urging us to look at smaller rockets, which is fair, and we will go back and evaluate that because small rockets deserve love too.
I'm gonna do this live. Something else that's come up once or twice is the idea. Kind of similar to Scouts, where you have badges for different like mission patches are already a big thing in the aerospace industry. Like SpaceX launches the Discover payload to observe the Earth, and it has its own mission patch, right? So Rocketry could have its own like set of patches for different types of flights. So like that's something that'd be relatively easy to like integrate into low power and power and high power. I guess relatively easy. Distributing patches might be like
we could do that. That's a thing we could do. That would be super fun. And that goes back to like the video game analogy of like how do we give people that feeling of leveling up. People love collecting things and sharing things with each other. So that's a great Andrew, we should talk about that later.
We're gonna do that. Not us brainstorming live in front of hundreds of
people. I know. 221 people. You heard it here, folks.
Plus the Twitch stream.
Oh, true. Yeah. Okay. The next one is, are you a 501c3 in case I would like to donate money to support your organization? We do have a donate button on our website. But I think we're going to be an LLC.
Yeah.
For a few different reasons that we won't get into on stream, but like it gives us more freedom. But we are actively looking for people to sponsor us in terms of like the Nozzle Works groups or the event itself. We did have great sponsors last year, but like if any of you are like, man, my company would love this, let us know. We would love to work with you.
LLC, at least to start, it's really easy to go from LLC to 501c3. That might meet our needs better, but we can't really go back. So we want to establish first, because we're kind of moving fast. Like this didn't exist like April 1 of last year.
We're zooming.
It's barely been, it hasn't even been 10 months.
That's
which is
what is time during COVID? Time doesn't exist during COVID.
Time is music the planet's making.
I agree. Totally. Okay. Let's see. Stop doing. Okay, what is one thing that current NAR groups should stop doing that turns young people off? I think like one thing that really bothers me is that when I go somewhere and I ask a question and someone treats me like I am inferior or stupid because I didn't know that question, they're like, this is so obvious. How could you not know this? And as someone who like, I only got into space in like 2018. That's when space became my thing. So like going straight to NASA from that, like there would be things where people are like, how do you not know this? And I'm like, you can't learn unless you ask questions. So if people ask questions, like, first of all, be like, great question. Thank you for asking that. And then answer their question and don't be like elitist about it almost. Like there's some people who are like throwing around acronyms and, everyone starts from somewhere and that's the best. You just gotta be welcoming. I don't know.
Yeah, there's a fine line between explaining something and I can't, God, I can't think of a better word. There's a fine line between explaining something and mansplaining something.
I was gonna say it.
And like, I'm trying to find a better word. But when you
patronizing.
Yeah, but sometimes like sometimes you don't know. Like I know I've run into a lot of people that like don't know that like the way they're saying things is not like conducive to helping someone feel like their questions are welcome.
Absolutely.
And it's like it's so subtle.
Yeah.
But really, like, at least the way I like to frame it is stolen directly from XKCD. If any of you read XKCD, it's a digital comic that like has a pencil paper feel. And there's a lot of math and stuff with it. But the whole thing is like, on average, about 10,000 people per day learn something that like you should have known. If you assume that people just sort of are learning stuff linearly. So if you get to learn something new that day, they're one of the lucky 10,000, right?
Sure.
It's exciting. It's a way to frame it. That's like
learning's fun.
Learning is fun. That's like why we do this.
Dana put something super important in the chat, which like Dana's one of our team leads. We love Dana. She said that when explaining, assume someone is intelligent but not knowledgeable, and understanding the difference is key, which I think is so true, bestie. That's a great quote. I just wanted to say that because I was like, I read it and I was like, that is absolutely correct.
So that's the general idea. That's wrapping it back together, just paying attention to exactly how you're saying things just as much as what you're saying.
So we were told that we have to wrap it up soon. 8 minutes ago.
Oh, no. Okay.
I'm sorry, we're just having so much fun.
The Discord.
Okay. Are there any way you can answer super? Okay, love the emphasis on inclusiveness. Is inclusivity not a word? I keep saying inclusivity and people are like, that's not correct.
I don't know. I think we have a link to the Discord on our website, right?
NSF. We should look into NSF. Open source, Raspberry Pis. Aw. Ed, you don't have to be 45 years younger. We will take you now. Time is a construct. How are you funded? Great question. Last year it was just us running around frantically being like, please fund us. We have like a month. It was a lot of personal ties that I had to pull.
Have you one idea? National sporting events, hosting by chapters. NARTREC. I have not looked into NARTREC, and I am very curious. I'm going to write that down to go look up. Thank you, Stephen Loveliner. I will look it up.
Nice. Okay, I think we should probably wrap this up because, oh my gosh. I don't know. This is my perfect way to spend it. It's Friday, right? Friday night. This is, I would stay here all night if they let me talking about rockets. And I don't know about you guys, but that sounds perfect. Cool. So yeah, this is our outro. And thank you again so much for having us. It was an absolute honor. Thank you to the NAR folks. Like, y'all were very lovely to work with. We look forward to like making this a reality. So if you want to join us, like, again, head to our website, head to our Discord, and just be a kind human. Like, that's really what it comes down to. Like, all of this, if put into one word, is just like kind. So cool. All right. Well, have a good night. Do we hit stop broadcast?
Not yet.
No. Okay.
There's the button is instantaneous, but there's a delay.
That's so funny.
So we're gonna say goodbye, and we're gonna like sit here for a hot second, and then we're gonna hit the button. So thanks, everybody. Have a good NARCON.
Good night. Drink water.
Drink water.
You can find us on social media. Aw.
Hang out.
God, people are so sweet. Oh my gosh, you guys are so. Also, the amount of emails I'm getting right now, and like, you guys can add us on LinkedIn too if you want. Feel free to. All
right, I'm gonna hit the button now. Night, everybody.
Bye, pals.